this is part of the reason why astrology is thought of as superstitious, because most people that are into astrology are superstitious. The ability to read astrology, to read the sky, it's not magic, it's not mysticism, it's intellect, the same kind of intellect that it takes to read English. It's just that it's different. It's a different language, and people aren't educated in how to learn and how to read it. Will and karma are two different things. Will is actually what generates karma, and the karma has its repercussions. The mechanism that drives events is karma. It's not astrology. Sex dolls might be exciting, but they're not really that exciting compared to real sex. So that is how Brahman works. He's not going to just make objects. He's not just going to make robots. He's not just going to make things. He's going to make beings that he can interact with.
First of all, namaste, Vic Ji. I'm so happy to actually see you finally and be able to speak to you, because literally a few months ago I think a couple of months ago is when I discovered you. And it was just because of, things which I'm going in my own life. Like I started getting back to astrology to kind of self-reflect or self-investigate as to what is going on. And then I came across your particular videos, and that particular series on the nakshatras, especially, they blew my mind, because with each of them, you're giving some of the other story or tale, which is just fascinating. And it's, coming from our scriptures, and we ourselves are not that aware of it. So I felt kind of ashamed, but at the same time, so proud that, it's reaching more people, and that you've been doing such great work with it. So thank you so much for doing what you're doing.
Thank
you. Anything you want to ask me, or anything before we just start off? Because it's like a very casual thing. I don't have like a professional, podcast scenario where we start with this and that. It's just like a proper heart-to-heart conversation. That's all it is.
Let's do it.
All right. Fantastic. So just to introduce you to whoever's going to listen to this, I'm just going to repeat what I mentioned, that I came across you around a couple of months ago. And this is when I myself was going through, some sort of a tough time. And I just wanted to figure out at a more deeper level what is going on with me. That's where I came across your videos, and then discovered that Nakshatra series, which was amazing. After that, I basically started watching more and more of your content, even stuff which is not related purely to astrology, because you have given a lot of tales over there, like of Shiva and Sati. There was one especially which struck me a lot, where Shiva turns into his form of Rudra because somebody he loves was not treated properly. And that spoke very, very dearly to me, because even I am somebody who can take something which is said about me much more easily than if the people I love, they're in a bad position. So I don't like that. So that really struck a chord with me. So I did some research on you yesterday, just so I could introduce you over here, if wherever people are going to listen to this. And I came across this thing, that you were basically a band member before, and you were a punk band member, and a guitarist, and a vocalist, and everything. And from there, I was just amazed as to how you've come to what you're doing now, because I believe what you're doing now, you're doing it since 1988. So how
More
did
or
that
less,
happen?
yeah, depending on what aspect of what I'm doing now. The astrology part is more like 2007-ish.
Okay.
But the Vedic part is since 1988, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And what influenced you to switch over to this entire way of living? How did that enter your life from, being a musician? How did all of this come across your way?
I think when you look at a tree, you only see the tree, and then you ask, how does the tree make these fruits, or how does the leaves? But there's all the roots that we don't know about, which are under the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So I can tell you about the tree, but we can't talk about my roots because those are in previous lifetimes. So we can't. I don't know any more specifics to tell you about that, but you can infer the nature of the roots based on the quality of the tree. But in this lifetime, I get, just since birth, I just didn't feel like normal. Or, I just didn't feel like the rest of the people, just in any way.
Hmm.
And then, so that gradually got me into like doing things that are weird. So like instead of playing sports like a proper boy would do, I got into doing freestyle stuff, like BMX freestyle or
Hmm.
skateboarding. Just like, of course, you're going to do sports because you're like a 12-year-old boy, but like that would be the sport that I would get into.
Hmm.
And then from as a result of that, I got into like countercultural, uh, just countercultural scene in general because like BMX freestyle is associated with skateboarding, skateboarding is associated with punk. So then I started listening to these bands and because I just felt weird since I was born, I really liked it.
Hmm.
I liked the feeling, the message, the lyrics, and everything that's in this kind of punk music. And then that got me into wanting to be a musician,
Hmm.
which again is just like with the root for that is probably super deep. Like even back further than that, my parents just started off teaching me guitar piano when I was like 8 or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, I did that, and I started to get into like hardcore punk, which is like metal punk, like it's like a cross between like Slayer and I don't know, it's like Motorhead kind of music, like hardcore punk, not just like not pop punk or not like happy punk.
Hmm.
And there was a band in there called the Cro-Mags. You'd probably really like them, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
there's this one record that is really good. It's called Age of Quarrel, which is
okay.
Kali.
I'll write it
It's
down.
a translation of Kali Yuga.
Okay.
Yeah. So like the whole theme of the record is Kali Yuga,
Okay.
and the band is just so it's like a very masculine
Hmm.
in like a really crisp way. Like just it's a really good record. I recommend it.
Hmm.
Um, and these guys were into Krishna. They were into
Okay.
Hare Krishna. Like because they grew up on the streets of New York, so they were getting free food from the Hare Krishnas in the park in Tompkins Square Park. So they got exposed to Krishna
Hmm.
consciousness, ISKCON. They got exposed to all that stuff,
Hmm.
and they brought that into their music. And
Hmm.
for me, that was just like, oh my god, this is so interesting. This is really interesting. So I got into it because of being in punk.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I saw that even you, for example, got associated, I think some of your writings were to do with the wonderful as well as the bad things of ISKCON or
Yeah,
something to do with that. And there is
yeah.
actually a very elderly gentleman who became a friend of mine recently. And he is an Indian, but he had been moved to Australia when they were very, very young. And then over there he discovered like Krishna consciousness and read the Gita, and he is also like a seeker. So he was like, ultimately this is where everything's at. I've been looking in all the wrong places.
Yeah.
And then he moved to Vrindavan over here, and then he was working over there to the point where he started rising through the hierarchy of the organization. But then he came to know what exactly is going on inside, and he didn't like it, and he's actually written a lot to try to expose them. And then there was a lot of tantra which was done on him. People didn't like what he was
Mm.
doing, and because of that he suffers medically a little bit even today. But he's a amazing guy. He's around 60 or maybe late 50s.
I wonder if I know
And
him.
his good name is Dr.
Mm.
He was acting as a this thing, something to do with the temple. I don't know what the name of that position is, but something to do with that. And he was also like a homeopathic doctor over there.
Huh.
So he was there for like, I think, 20 or maybe 25 years. And then he had his child also over there. He got married again. But then once he came to know so deeply what is going on, he just left it all, because he's also very aware of geopolitics, you know. And when he came to know especially what they had done with this particular organization, he couldn't stand it. So he fought back, as well as then he had to remove himself and his family, for because they actually even ended up killing one of his own friends They burnt him up, in his room. So, and when I heard all of this, like, I thought I already had some level of, awareness when it comes to geopolitics and stuff like that. But the stuff I came to know from him was, even for me, just a year back, so far out. But just within a year, the inflow of all that kind of information from so many other directions has increased to a point that it is all connecting. It's all making sense. And you might be interested in knowing there's this very young Indian boy. I don't know if you're aware of him, Abhigya Anand.
Yeah, I know.
Yes. So even on his YouTube channel's description, if you would go, his parents, I think, manage everything for him. They've written over there that, for those of you who think we're associated with ISKCON, we are not associated at all because it's run by XYZ kind of people and we have nothing to do with them. And so it's coming out even now in the open, very, very slowly, but it's crazy what's going on in the world, like what the Maya shows us versus what the thing is within. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's actually really intense. It's intensely sad, actually.
Yeah.
It's intensely sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I wrote a memoir about that period of my life where I was still doing punk rock music, but also living as a brahmachari at the same time.
Yeah, which is a very conflicting lifestyle set.
Yeah, you could say.
Crazy. All right. So I've got a bunch of questions for you. All right.
Sure.
And let's just dive into the meat of our conversation because hopefully the team will produce it in a way where there'll be an introduction also given to you, because I came across your books and I saw that they're so highly rated. So that's really amazing. I would love to myself check out some of them. And also I wasn't surprised about the music thing because I always saw your backdrop having either the sitar or the veena or something behind. So, the first time I Googled you, I was like, Vic Dicara, and it shows a punk rock bass guitarist in this. And I was like, doesn't match with, what you've been doing on YouTube. But then yesterday when I actually went deeper, I was like, wow, it's the same, gentleman. And that must have been an amazing journey. And that's really, really great, So, that I asked you in the email that I sent you that this conversation I wanted to have to remove the kind of misconceptions that people have about astrology, because in my opinion, it's sad that within India itself, everybody's understanding of it is quite limited, and it's mostly to do with fortune telling and future prediction, and it has a lot of association with superstition now, unfortunately, because society has moved towards being science based, and but I feel that modern science is just discovering what a lot of our shastras have always laid out from eons. So my first question to you is going to start off from here only, that how is astrology not just about future prediction and fortune telling?
Well, I think if we have to try to, I think the best way to answer that question is to even ask, how could it possibly even be able to do fortune telling or predict the future? And if you can figure out how it's possible to predict the future, then you could see what else is possible. So the reason why you can predict the future is because every event is connected to every other event. So everything is a cause from an effect. I mean, everything is an effect from a cause, and then the effect becomes another cause. So that's why knowing the position and velocity of a ball in the present moment, you can predict where that ball will be 3 seconds from now, right? We do this all the time if you play baseball or something, or if you throw a ball to somebody, they know how to catch it because their brain looks at the direction the ball is going and the speed that it's going, and they know where to put their hand to catch the ball in the future. So that's because
it's information.
And you can also backtrack. You can say, well, the ball's here now and it's going this direction at this speed, so it must have been there before, right? So it's because the present, the past, and the future aren't three separate things. There's just one thing, which is experience, and it has these three sides to it. It's the main experience, and then the thing which generated it, and the thing that gets it generated by it. The thing that gets generated by experience is the future, and the thing that generated the experience is the past, and then the present. And because of this, you can know, if you know one of those three, then you can infer about the other two. Then where astrology comes into that is, astrology is the universe itself explaining to you what the moment is. So it's like a clock. Like, one of the misconceptions about astrology is that Jupiter's going to do something to me, or Saturn's going to do something to me. And when I was growing up, I used to watch Carl Sagan Cosmos series. I loved it. I loved the guy. And he had one episode where he like debunked astrology. And he said, the people that believe in astrology, they think that Saturn has an effect on them. What kind of effect does Saturn have on you? What is it? It must be, if it has an effect, it must be measurable. Let's measure it. Is it the gravity from Saturn? Is it the rays from Saturn? Is it the light from Saturn? The amount of light that you get from Saturn is less than the amount of light that you get from a candle that's at the end of the hallway. And he did stuff like that. And actually, this is part of the reason why astrology is thought of as superstitious, because most people that are into astrology are superstitious. And they don't have a scientific or rational approach to it. They think Saturn is affecting me. The gravity waves from the moon are causing me to XYZ. The astrology is not, planets in the sky are not causing anything to happen any more than the hands on my clock are causing the time of day. The hands of the clock are telling us it's this time right now. But they're measuring something else. So similarly, the universe is this big clockwork of stuff that's going on, and it has a face to it. All the gears of the universe have a face, a clock face. And that face is in outer space. You see the planets moving, and they move through these zones, just like our clock has these zones on it. This is the 1 o'clock zone, 2 o'clock zone. The planets move through these zones, and these zones have meaning based on simple visual things, like this planet looks this way, it moves this way. This area of the sky is over here, and it's not over there. It's not under the ground. It's above the ground. It's over here where the sun rises. It's where the sun sets, etc. It's west. It's east. And because of that stuff, this clock face has meaning to it. So the movement of the planets causes time really to move forward. And the configuration of planets at any given particular point in time describe to you the basic nature of that moment in time. So by looking at the planets, if you know how to read that, just like you have to know how to, my daughter had to learn how to read a clock in first grade. It's not just obvious. So similarly, you have to learn how to read the sky. But once you know how to read the sky, you can see this particular time has this given nature. And I bet you if I fast forward it, it will turn into this. Or if I rewind it, it will come from that. And with astrology, you can actually fast forward and rewind the configuration of planets to see what the other timestamps look like. So it's not like, see, this is one of the books that I wrote, was The Beautifully Rational Philosophy of Astrology.
Yeah.
It's a rational philosophy. This is the kind of thing that I go into there. It's not based on a hocus pocus that somehow I'm this guy who has mystic powers so I can see the future. Actually, this is in Bhagavatam when this is a funny part in Bhagavatam when Vasudeva, Krishna's real father, when he sent Krishna to Vrindavan, and then he told Nanda, be careful. People are going to come and try to kill him. And Nanda thought, well, are you crazy? He's just a baby. But then when people came to kill him, he thought, oh my God, this guy's a sage. This guy's a sage. He's a sadhu. How did he know that the future? But Vasudeva laughed and thought it's funny because it's not, he wasn't predicting the future. He was just rationally figuring out the course of events. Just making sense out of things. So what people think is magic and what people think is mystical stuff, it's just intellect just working in a way that most people don't understand, like the ability to read astrology, to read the sky. It's not magic. It's not mysticism. It's intellect, the same kind of intellect that it takes to read English. It's just that it's different. It's a different language and people aren't educated in how to learn and how to read it.
So just to touch upon this itself, like I wrote down a couple of things, but the question which is coming to me right now is that And I believe recently you've also kind of made a video on this about free will, you know. But all of us as humans being free willed individuals or organisms or creatures or sentient beings, etc. And since we are talking about the effect of these planets, like how exactly do they impact a human being? So the distinction which we should make over here is it that that the planets basically define the moments in time, and then obviously the humans with their free will acting within that time are going to be affected because of the way the time is functioning, and that's how it affects them.
Yeah,
So
I think that's
it's not a direct impact. It's like, because it's impacting the time which is operating, that time is affecting the individuals in different ways. Is that what it
yeah.
is?
Yeah, the configuration of planets actually describes the time. It's not impacting anything. It's just a description. It's a convenient thing that the universe was set up. Brahma sets up the universe in such a way that you can read it. But it's not the mechanism that drives events is karma. It's not astrology. Karma is the mechanism that makes effects come out of causes. But the astrology is like a clock face on karma. And then the question of free will is really great one to bring up. So people will generally have this kind of dichotomy or dilemma, like, should I believe in astrology or should I believe in free will? Should I believe in destiny or should I believe that I have control over my life? Which is a false dilemma. So here's an analogy that I haven't given in a while, but I like. If you walk up to a bus stop and you just slap somebody in the face, you're gonna get like in trouble for that, right? Whether the person turns around and slaps you back, whether they call the police, whether they hate you, so you're gonna get some negative effect from that. So you can use your free will to say, I'm going to do anything I want. I'm going to slap this person. But after you slap the person, you've generated some repercussions for yourself. So it's a false dichotomy to think that will and karma are two different things. Will is actually what generates karma. And the karma has its repercussions. So we make a choice to do something, but we're responsible for that choice. We're responsible for every choice that we make, everything that we do. So the effects of what we do come back to us. That's unavoidable. You get the effects of it. That's what feels like destiny or fate. So it's the will that generates the fate. And then when the stuff is happening back to you, you also still have your will. What should I do about this?
Yes.
How should I deal with this? How should I react to this?
How will you react this time compared to last time, how you acted?
Yeah. And can I say one more thing?
Yes, for sure.
That's really interesting. This is what makes another really big misconception about astrology is like, some people think that, hey, this guy's an astrologer. He should be able to tell me like some incredibly specific thing that they want to know. Right. But I can't. Like, give me a break. Like, if you understand, like, even if I read you a poem, what does it mean? Say, like I said, like astrology is like English, it's a language. Well, if I read you a poem, like, what does it mean? It's up to you. It means who knows? There's some stuff about it. Same thing. Astrology is just a symbolism of a language that's describing the nature of karma at a given moment. I don't know exactly what it means. And that is actually not a flaw or a mistake. It's because the karma of what's going to happen to me, for example, because of my previous deeds, it's not so rigid that I can't continue to interact with it with my will. It has within a certain boundary, I can adjust it, So it's actually, sometimes people say, okay, let's do a test for astrology and see if it works or not. Let's see if you can predict what age I got chickenpox. Okay, maybe I can, maybe I can't. It's a difficult thing. It's really difficult to do that.
Yeah.
It's not really going to prove whether or not astrology is valid or invalid. If I can prove when you got chickenpox, it's just going to prove if I got the answer right or not.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not good enough Maybe I wasn't
and
lucky. Maybe it's too
people
complicated. Maybe,
yeah, and people would normally, base their entire judgment of astrology based on whether this one person can answer this one question.
yeah.
Yeah.
People are so silly, really. People will be like, "Oh, I read my heart in the West." They'll get their horoscope out of a newspaper, probably in India too. You get your horoscope out of a newspaper. The one day that they checked their horoscope, it was like spot on for them, and they're like, "That's it. I'm a believer. I love astrology."
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the day that they checked it, they were depressed. They wanted to check their astrology. They checked it. It made no sense to them, and they're like, "This is total garbage."
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's how we are. We're very silly. We just evaluate things really superficially, whether it's
Yeah.
astrology or anything.
And I found, these things really interesting, which you mentioned. One about time, and second about karma, because um, over the past like 1 year, the kind of studies that I've been doing. So like again, I don't have any level of proficiency when it comes to the understanding, but I came across this concept which you mentioned, that people categorize past, present, and future as three different things, but they're all part of the same experience, as you mentioned. And that's what even I realized, because if you study time a little bit, they talk about time not being sequential. It's not a sequential thing, it's simultaneous. um, and that is something which kind of blew my mind, because we are so conditioned to work ever since the calendars and all came into place, that uh, this is ahead and this was behind, but it's not. It's all part of the same experience, as you said.
Mm.
And this is something which for whoever's listening also, I would encourage them to study about time being circular compared to being sequential, and as if there are steps going ahead, because it's actually going nowhere if you think about it. you know and the second thing about karma, which you mentioned. So again, these there are a lot of different schools of thought which are out there right now. And I remember you had I saw some comment of yours. Somebody was talking about something, and you were like, I stay away from all the conspiracy and this thing stuff, because I don't know much about it, and it sounds quite wacko. But in terms of the planets, do you think they are beings in themselves? And I don't mean like aliens, but I mean like alive entities, just like how for Earth we have Gaia, or um, I mean, that is one way of looking at it, Earth as an organism in itself. And then there's obviously our Vedic way of looking at it as Bhuloka, and then the other lokas, in which, like you've also mentioned, about the Nagas and stuff like that. So about Saturn, for example, I came across this somewhere, that Saturn is basically the karmic library, and it holds the records of every being's karmic actions in all their lifetimes. And that is why it's the database. And because everyone's mindset is that Saturn is bad, Shani, as they call it in India, and that they try to appease him by walking around, like lighting the lamp under the people tree and stuff, but their actions are still really, really not that great. Whereas that's all that they could do, because I believe that this particular lord is just looking at if you are humble and just, you know so is there something like this, that Saturn is something like a karmic library, and the records are stored over there, like how, for example, there's this whole talk around the Akashic records and stuff like that. But
Mm.
about this karma topic, like if you could please shed some light.
Sure. I think there's two interesting things to reply to. One is whether Saturn is the karmic record, and the other one is whether the planets are alive.
Yeah.
So with that's very interesting, because everything depends upon the observer. The reality is really dependent on the observer. This is quantum. This is the problem that they ran into when they started developing quantum physics. That reality really depends on the observer. So for 99% of human beings, the Earth is not alive. A rock is not alive. The mountain is not alive. It's just a thing,
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that doesn't mean that these people are really observing reality in its fullness. So I think for a person that's really observing reality in the fullness, they would also kind of scoff at the question of if the planets are alive, because they would just think like everything is alive. Everything is consciousness, whether taking the role of of something that you can experience, or taking the role of the experiencer, that it's all Brahman, sarvam kalvidam Brahman. It's all Brahman. So it's not just planets that are alive, but atoms are alive. The atoms are the living force of Shakti, of Vishnu.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then it's somewhere in between, that extreme between people who just think nothing except themselves is alive, and the other person who thinks everything is alive. Somewhere within this extreme, there's all different kinds of realities, you know. So yeah, the planets are devatas, and they do superintend. And this transitions to your other question about whether Saturn is. They all superintend various aspects of karma. So they're all like working for Chitragupta and Yama.
Okay. The Lord of Death, Yama.
Yeah, Yama is the Lord of enforcement, right?
Okay.
They're all keeping track of the karma, and the way that he's enforcing his thing is by having these planets move so that he can get effects done, so that he can bring effects to people. So they're all like his agents. And it's not that the thing about Saturn being the karmic library, for sure Saturn is the karmic library, but I think we also forgot that Jupiter is the karmic library, the sun, the moon, all of the planets are karmic library, because that's what astrology is. Astrology is the clock face, or like the graphical user interface to the operating system of karma. Saturn might be the one that you think of when you think of the word karma, because people tend to think of the word karma as like, oh no, man, it's a bad thing. I got my karma. I slapped that person at the bus stop and now I got arrested. So I got my karma. But that's not all that karma is. Karma is when you help an old lady with her groceries and then people like you and you feel happy in life. That's also karma. That's actually called karma. The thing about slapping somebody and getting punished is actually called vikarma.
Okay. The opposite
Bad karma,
way.
vikarma.
Okay.
Yeah, there's karma and vikarma and akarma are three important terms.
What's the difference, please, between the three?
Karma is the performance of a deed.
Okay.
Vikarma is the performance of a bad deed.
Okay.
Something that you shouldn't do. You shouldn't do it. And akarma is not to do anything.
Inaction.
Yeah.
But that's also like a decision, right? To be inactive.
Right. So in Gita, Krishna says a person who is wise, they think that sometimes there's karma in akarma, and sometimes there's akarma in karma. Sometimes you're going to get a repercussion for not doing anything. We know this, especially men. Men, we have to do stuff. We can't sit around and wait. We have to take action. And so sometimes if we don't, we've messed up our dharma. We've messed up our duty. We didn't act when we were supposed to act. This can be terrible. It could feel so bad for the rest of your life if you were supposed to do something at a certain time. Like somebody needed you at a certain time and you didn't do it. You didn't protect them. Then that's vikarma in the akarma. So that's one of like the little riddles that Krishna unravels in chapter 3 of Gita. But going back to the thing about planets, so don't just think of karma as a bad thing. Karma is everything that happens as a result of our actions. And so Jupiter is the storehouse of karma too. It's just that Jupiter is the storehouse of generally, Jupiter represents the good results of the karma, the things that grow you and help you expand, where Saturn represents what we call the bad results, which is the things that restrict you. But restriction is not always a bad thing, and growth is not always a good thing. Yeah. It's like a lot of people want to restrict their weight. Or somebody who has cancer wants to restrict how much it's going to grow. Right? So, and then in that case, Jupiter would be bad. You wouldn't want to increase it. So negativity and positivity, Saturn is negative, Jupiter is positive, and it generally means bad and good, but it's not, Saturn is not bad. Jupiter is not good. But Jupiter is the kind of karma that increases things, and Saturn is the kind of karma that decreases things.
Or delays it.
Or delays.
Yeah. Because this is one thing which I, learned, especially after the past few months of studying this a lot. I was watching, your videos, and I discovered you a bit late. Before that, I had discovered Dr. Arjun Pai and, I haven't seen much of Jeffrey Armstrong, but then there's a wonderful lady called Eve Mendoza. There's like some really lovely people out there, with some really amazing knowledge, and there's so much to learn. And sorry, what had you said? I just started on that, but I forgot.
Good karma, bad karma, Jupiter. Oh, the Saturn restriction,
About
and you said delay.
Saturn, yeah, Saturn. So
Yeah.
I learned from all of these people that because again, growing up in India, like you get you get impressed with these impressions that Shani is evil and he's after you. He's he's behind you to like whip you or something like that. But I think all it does is it waits until you are ready to give you what you need or want or something like that. So, and that's what I came across when I was like watching all of this, because they were saying that Saturn delays but never denies. And that was something which was good to hear, like for me, who was kind of removing the conditioning of regular astrological knowledge which I had gathered. Actually, just over here, I'll share with you how my interest came into this for the first time. So when I was, so I come from a background in India, which is like, luckily my parents and all, they're very, very cosmopolitan. So it's very open-minded. It's because they're all in the military. All right. So my father retired as a general and he's a doctor. And same as with my uncle. And on both my mother's and father's side, they're all in the Army, Navy, Air Force. So we never had any pressure of being a certain way because we don't belong to any community. We are totally mixed. I'm supposed to be Punjabi. I don't even know the language and I've never lived there. All right. I have no roots, no ancestral place, nothing. All right. Because even my grandparents, they are mixed, on both the sides and everything. My mom used to go to the Hanuman temple in the city where we currently are. And when I was very young, I used to go along with her up until the age of like 10, 11. Then I used to be like, the temples are like, it's muck on the floor, it's like dirty. And all I see the pundits always doing is, taking money and stuff. So that's when I like just stopped it all. And I never had any inclination to inquire more about what this entire religion scene is and etc. Because at that time I used to think Hinduism is about a religion, whereas it's not. It's a way of living, Sanatan Dharma. So I had no idea, and I just stayed away. And then as I grew up and I started doing my own studies related to self improvement and stuff, obviously being much younger, there was way more ego and immaturity, so it was all building up even more and more. And it came to the point where once in a while my mom used to try to take me to the temple, or and not for making me religious, but just come along. And I used to be like, no. And then meet this pandit, I used to be like, no. Then there was, because I used to find all the pundits to have a commercial angle, you know so what happened is that one day, this would be around somewhere between 2011, 2012, 2013, when I was doing my undergraduate. And there was this gentleman who came to our house, and my mom was like, meet him, he's a very knowledgeable man. And I was like, What is he?" So she's like, "He's a pandit." I was like, "Fuck off!" Like, I'm not coming over. Like, I'm not interested at all, because like what I'm reading in like books like Carl Sagan or like stuff like that. That okay, this is all much more interesting. She's like, "Just try it, and if you don't like it, you let it go." Because he's also from the army, luckily. So in the army, in the Indian army, every unit has a temple, a mosque, a church, and a gurudwara. All right, wherever they are stationed. So accordingly, there are priests for these places, and they're army people, so they don't have a commercial angle. So that was like, okay, I'll go and I'll speak to him. And at that time, what were my most confounding questions about life? I would ask this guy, and he would answer them with one line, like one shloka, of Sanskrit. And then he would explain it to me, and it would blow my mind. And that is where first time I got introduced to astrology via him, because after my undergraduate, I was going to leave the country because I realized that I'm still a useless piece of shit. I need to like do more, so I was like, I'm going to try to take on some sort of an experience to learn more. And then I stayed in touch with him. And then since then, that is the time when, even in my writings to you, I mentioned that 2013 onwards been really tough. So 2013 onwards, like, I was having a lot of difficulty because jobs especially were not available in Western EU. And I wanted like one of the best, but like it was still post-recession time. So there was a lot of struggle. And I was the youngest in my class. People were there with work experience, because that's what Westerners do. They do a master's after some work I just went as a fresher, and I was doing two masters simultaneously at the same time. So it was just too much of a struggle. And then he said, you will get like what you're looking for, the job which you're getting for, but in the country you're looking for right now, you will not get there. Because at that time I was searching in London, and my studies had began in Dublin. And he's like, you will be there itself, you will be in Ireland. And I was like, I why do you say that? Because I've not even made one application there. He's like, you try as much as you want in the UK, you're not going to get a job over there. I was like, what the hell? Like, why is he? And I kept trying. I sent over 200 applications. I'd never got it. And trust me, at that time, it wasn't as if, it set a bias in my head, or it, turned on a particular belief in my head. Nothing like that. I wanted it there only, because London is way more alive than Dublin. And, I'm coming from India, so I can't settle in a very quiet place and stuff like that. So, but it didn't happen. After continuously trying, literally, I missed one entire year of job placements. And then the next year, finally, I, got it. And it was in Dublin. So it was just amazing. So that's the first time I got introduced. And that's where I, got downloaded these reports online. And I used to try to like study and research a little bit. So around a year, I had done that. And then now last year, August onwards, again, I came back to it. But this time I've just come back with a very different perspective, because this time I'm like going as deep as I can to just learn from it, whatever is possible, because it's beautiful, which brings me to my next question, actually, that what makes astrology a divine science?
I don't know. What's the definition of a divine science? Like what? Go ahead.
So like how those who especially are on the rational side of thinking or the intellectual side of thinking, and they like to question everything with evidence and, like the Western ways of thinking. But I think science most of the time is only able to validate what up until now it has developed an ability to test and measure. All right. But there's so much more which is unseen. And until the technology comes to that level, they're not going to accept that, okay, this is how it is. So science is kind of limited, in my opinion, in that particular understanding. And that's why something like astrology, to me, seems like a divine science. Why? Because it didn't come in our future. It came from the past. Okay. And it came from the past at an incredibly deep level of sophistication. Because from whatever little, I have a friend also, who himself is like a novice astrologer. He's been studying it for the past 3-4 years. And I'm just amazed at the innumerable amount of calculations which are possible in astrology. So the permutations and combinations are unlimited. And as I said, coming from the past and it being very, very mathematical, probably one of the first applications of mathematics, combined with observational evidence, because, earlier that's what these guys used to do. There was no Netflix, so they used to look at the black screen up in the sky. So, at that time where technology did not exist, telescopes weren't there, none of that stuff were there, but these guys made this, as well as, I don't know whether it was just mere humans or the story where I believe Agastya Muni narrated the Bhrigu Shastra or something, and Ganesha wrote it down. I believe I might be wrong
I'm not
over
sure
here.
either.
Yeah. So that was because of the kind of roots from where it comes. For me, it's something which is divine. Because it is not from today. Because I also believe that a lot of the things which are coming from today are quite corrupted. Like the pharma industry is making new medicines, but it's just making people more sick via those medicines, and 30 years later they need more medicine. So for me, it's a divine science, because it is because of all the things which I mentioned. So how do you think about it?
Yeah, I think I could say a couple of things. One thing is about science, and one thing is maybe about the divinity of it. I think I would encourage you to rethink the idea that actually the Western people invented science.
Yeah, of course not.
Yeah, it's not a Western way of thinking.
Yeah.
Actually, Western people are quite illogical. And all this Christianity, Judaism, Islam, it's not based on science. It's based on
Us versus
like
them.
army kind of stuff, really.
Us
Just,
versus them.
I'm your leader. You follow me. That's it.
Yeah.
The Nayakas of India invented science. The Vaisheshikas of India invented science.
I want to write this down. Vaisheshikas
and Nayakas. N-Y-A.
Okay.
Nyayaka.
Okay.
It was shortly after Buddhism. Actually, it was after Buddhism that the Nyayakas and Vaisheshikas became very prominent. This is why we don't see a lot of Buddhists in India anymore. Because they ripped that thing apart. They ripped the Buddhist concept apart with the logic and science, that the idea that one can come from zero. The Shunyavad of Buddhism, they just tore it to pieces. And so the Buddhists left and they went into Tibet to get away from the Nyayakas and the Vaisheshikas.
Okay, our guys messed it up. Okay. Like these Vaisheshikas and Nayakas messed up the Buddhist
messed up, like philosophy. You could say, we ripped it up.
Okay.
Because Buddhism said, let's not talk about the Vedas. Because the whole Buddha himself was like, you guys are doing himsa, you guys are doing violence, and you're sitting around. It's like the Pandas. They're like they're pretending like they're pundits, but they just want their money. So it's in the same way these people are doing Vedic stuff, but actually they're just selfish bastards. And they're just doing the Vedic sacrifices and stuff to gratify themselves. So Buddha was like, no, this is just wrong. And stop justifying it based on this and that quote from the Veda. It's just wrong. Just the only thing that you should care about is whether or not you're violent or not violent. Just be nonviolent. It's just to have ahimsa. And that was his message. And it was very important for India at 5,000 years ago. Or I think it's 5,000 or 3,000 years ago. It was super important for India at that time. But the problem was that he got rid of that he told people, just forget about the Vedas, stop referring to the Vedas. So then there had to be people after him to say, okay, now that you've gotten rid of the Vedas and you got rid of your problem of exploiting the Vedas, let's bring it back. Let's bring it back, but not use it in an exploitive way. Anyway, about science, definitely like the Upanishads, the Vedas themselves, even before the Nyayakas and the Vaisheshikas, it's all based on questions and answers, questions, investigation. What is meditation? Meditation is nothing but an experiment. Meditation is observation, but instead of, I'm not just going to observe the intestines of a frog, I'm going to observe the operations of my mind, my intellect, my emotions, my feelings, my motivations. Meditation is science. It is observation. And then whether a science is divine or not, it depends again on how we want to define divine. Intellect is divine. So therefore, any ability to think is divine. But like you said, whether or not it comes from just regular people, like an iPhone came from Steve Jobs, like did it come out like that, of just some guys happened to invent it? And this is the difference between Avaroha and Aroha Panta. That's I think what we're talking about. Is it an Aroha science, which would be like a worldly science, an empiric science? It's built up from the ground. Aroha, it comes up Rohini. Or is it Avaroha? It just comes down from somebody else. So actually, honestly,
any examples of the two?
Yeah, sure. Physics. Isaac Newton watching an apple fall and then figuring out the laws of science based on that. That's Aroha, where you build stuff up.
Okay.
So
inference
is called Anuman, and Anuman is based on Pratyaksha, which is experience.
Okay.
So like Newton sees an apple fall, that's his Pratyaksha, and then he figures out like there must be something in the ground that's pulling it.
Yeah.
That's his
Okay.
Anuman, that's his inference. And then so now he comes to Shabda where he is able to define something.
Yeah.
He's able to define gravity. Let's call it gravity. So that there you're taking Pratyaksha, Anuman, and Shabda. You're building to Shabda from Pratyaksha. From your experience, you're building up to something definable. That's empirical science. Then the divine science is you're starting with Shabda, and you take the Shabda into your Anuman, and then it becomes Pratyaksha. So Shabda means the word, the definitions, the Shruti, the Smriti. You hear the Veda, you hear information. And you contemplate it, you meditate on it, you think about it, you try to figure it out. That's your Anuman. And then you see it. Like if you're practicing tennis or something and you're watching some good tennis player. I don't know anything about tennis, so I can't tell the difference between the best tennis player and the worst tennis player. But if after I get some education about what tennis is, then my observation can tell the difference. This guy has a good swing, this guy has a bad swing. So sometimes education will actually cause our perception to be different. So that's what divine science does. Divine science starts with information and then revolutionizes our perception. Empirical science starts with perception and then revolutionizes our information. So
Okay,
astrology.
so sorry, yeah, continue.
Go ahead.
So basically, just to round it off, just to clarify, one begins from experience, which is Aroha, and then
Yeah.
it comes towards man giving it some form, all
Right.
right? And the other one is which comes only from the information, such as from the Vedas, Avroha. So it's coming from above, and then we define it or like create it or manifest it into our experience.
Right.
Okay.
That's the ultimate way. The ultimate Avaroha is like the Veda will. But anytime I go to a school, for example, I'm doing Avaroha. Like if I go to first grade and the teacher tells me 1 + 1 = 2, that's an example of divine science functioning in a simple way. The teacher who has some knowledge gives it to me. I think about it. And then all of a sudden, the next time I'm playing with my toys and I have one toy and another toy and I put them together, then I see what 2 is. And it makes sense to me now because I heard it. I heard about it from my teacher. So that's how the Shabda comes through my intelligence or Anuman, and then it becomes part of my projection, my experience. So it's not just on the grand scale of like the Vedas and everything. It's any kind of educational method of getting knowledge is descending of Aroha. But now the question is on what's called the optika, whether the person is optic or not, optic purusha, if the person is qualified.
Yes.
So if you're so the quest is to find a more and more opta purush, a more and more qualified source of information to teach you. So that will eventually say, well, it would lead back to the Veda, to the sages, to the rishis, to the Veda, through which you can get information about stuff that's not just 1 + 1. I could have learned 1 + 1 = 2 another way. I didn't have to learn it from a teacher. I could have just got one toy here, I got another toy here. Now I got 2 of them. I could have done that by myself. But there's certain things that you can't do by yourself. Things that are not like taking parts of what I've already experienced and building them into a new thing. Information about what I don't even know how to explain it, but information which is about things which are beyond the perception of the senses has to be gained from a divine source. So astrology, I think, is part of the divine science of the Veda. I mean, actually, it is actually in the Rig Veda. There's parts of astrology. It's not terribly similar to what we do today, but the basic roots of astrology are in the Rig Veda. So I do think it's part of the divine science. Yeah, and it's just so amazing too. The thing that just tickles me about astrology is it's just so incredible. It's just so beautiful. It's just like it's so flawless. And not even I don't even want to like read anybody's chart sometimes, or like it's like that astrology becomes frustrating or annoying or difficult. But like the astrology itself, just like the concept of what does Mars represent, what does Venus represent, What is Aries? What is Taurus? Why? All that stuff is so enlightening and so deep and so beautiful. And the way that it all fits together and works out is just so incredibly perfect that it verifies the concept that Steve Jobs didn't put this together. You know, it didn't get built up from the ground. It like fell out of the sky, more or less. Like, I think, you know, when Vishnu enlightens Brahma about how to make the universe manifest, it includes the stuff that generates the astrological system that we have. So I think it's just a testament to the ingeniousness of Brahma that you have this thing out there in the sky that is so amazing and actually works. And if when you've done it like me, like when you've done thousands of charts, thousands of people, thousands of times, and you just see, often you get things wrong because I'm human, right? But even when I get something wrong, it's like, but see, I could see how I got it wrong. I missed this part, or like, I thought it meant brown, but it was like gold. You know, it's not like in left field or like something totally different. The astrology, it's just like, after doing thousands of charts, it's just amazing. Like, man, the world actually runs on karma, and you know, it's got this face to it. And in the sky, it's pretty amazing. It's like inspirational. Like, I think this universe isn't just a lost dog running off into the wilderness. I think it like has a purpose and a system. I think there's a system to it.
No, even it baffles me actually. It baffles me to. It's just crazy because even, for example, you know, after my email exchange with you, I'm still trying to study the technical stuff, you know, of certain things which you mentioned. I'm still trying to understand it more, still trying to go through it more. That's why, like, on that, I didn't even need to respond to you yet. I'm still working through it. I'm trying to understand, like, what does it mean for, you know, a particular planet to be looking at a particular house and having an impact and this and that, because it's insane. And again, like, the experience which normally in India you get with run-of-the-mill astrologers, you know, sitting in temples and stuff, they're only going to look at the planets and the houses in which, you know, they're sitting. Like my introduction to nakshatras, which happened through you and the few other, you know, esteemed people that I mentioned, that blew my mind. Especially even your video, you know, on Purva Falguni, about the ideal man, because I was like, holy shit, you know, this is what I'm trying to become myself, and I'm trying to help others become, you know. And it's tough, even though it's just one quality, you know, about, are you going to be able to carry out what you've said that you will do? Are you that trustworthy? It's weightage. It's not light, because as a man, as you start growing through life, the amount of weight that is piling on you starts increasing. You know, and as a man, you're worthless if you're not carrying any weight in society. You know, I don't blame society. I mean, that is what a man should be doing anyway, because, you know, he should be able to protect, he should be able to provide, he should be able to do those things for which he needs to take the responsibility of not just himself but even others. And within all that responsibility, to then be able to keep your word, like, I really loved that definition which you put across for Pura Falguni, and I was like, wow, this is just too good. So thank you so much for, you know, making the stuff which you make. It's your channel. I need to actually go way deeper, because it's like a massive a repository of amazing information. But let's come to the next question, which is, what can astrology ultimately tell a person about themselves? Because I do understand, and even you mentioned, you know, at the start, that it all has to do with karma. And I recently came to understand that, okay, the chart, the kundali, also shows you about your previous life. So basically there is information about your previous karma in there. So does it show, how much does it show? Does it show the future path also, or does it just show the past? And what else does astrology actually tell people, which is outside of, you know, things like fortune telling and future prediction? I'm talking about the life path, I'm talking about karmic lessons, I'm talking about previous life, stuff like that. If you could please tell something.
So since astrology is really a graphical user interface to karma, then anything that it can get generated by karma, astrology can tell you about that, which basically means everything.
Wow.
So astrology can tell you about everything, but if you have I mean, I've had the experience of trying to teach people things, right? So like you can teach one class and you're gonna have 3 students in it.
Yeah.
One student can understand your lesson better than you did, and another guy can understand nothing about it and completely think that you're talking about something else than what you're. But you said the same thing. So it's not just about what astrology can tell us, but it's about what we can hear, what we can learn. Astrology can potentially tell us everything about almost everything. But I don't think people can learn sometimes, you know. So this is a lot of times people will say, I want to get one of your reports, but what will it tell me? I have no idea what to tell how to answer that person. It's like if a woman says, I want to have a relationship with you, but what will it be like? I don't know. It depends on you too, doesn't it? It's not just me. You're also part of the relationship. So people often think that, like, let me go to an astrologer, and if the astrologer is good, it's not just good. If the astrologer is good, it depends on you. And that's why some people really like this astrologer and other people really like that astrologer, because some men like this woman and some women like that man, you know, different people click with different people.
Yeah.
And the transmission of knowledge actually is a relationship. So what astrology can tell us, it's usually limited by what we can grasp. And then actually what people who get readings usually realize is you get a reading, and on that day it may or may not make a lot of sense, or you may understand a bunch of stuff about it, but 3 days later all of a sudden something else comes out, you understand it better. A year later, 10 years later, 40 years later, you know the information that you got from a reading is kind of like what do they say when the pregnant, gestating. It's, you know, it's like taking its time to reveal itself to us. Why? Because we're taking our time to understand what it actually said. So just because I think astrology can tell us anything about anything, but you know, that doesn't mean that I can answer anybody's question about anything.
No, my question was that, for example, if you take an individual human being and you take their chart, I'm not talking about you in particular,
Yeah.
I'm talking about just astrology, the subject of astrology. What all information does that one chart
Kind of
contain
anything.
about the
Kind of
other
everything.
person?
Everything.
Because people's, as I said, like people normally think about it to, you know, plan their future and stuff like that. But I feel that it could be used if one learns how to study it, or if one has a qualified guide, that it can tell us so much more, from the past life to the, you know, karmic lessons, to what your life path is supposed to be,
Yeah.
what your purpose is supposed to be. So, and I'm sure that some of it is actually very scary, because I'm sure that when you look at a chart, you can look at when the person is going to die also. And that must
Yeah.
be like that must be like a load, you know, like to go
Yeah.
through video looking at stuff. So like this, what all are the unique things which are not commonly known that can be understood about ourselves from a chart?
I don't know what's commonly known or not, but you can know everything. So you can understand what a person is afraid of, what a person really wants, how a person loves, how a person hates, what the person hates, what the person loves. And that is actually the key to figuring out other stuff, like what they should do tomorrow, or what career they should have. It's not also, it's a false dichotomy. Some people say astrology is a psychological tool, and other people say astrology is like a predictive tool. But like this is such a false dichotomy, because the mind and psychology is the thing that motivates our actions, and the actions are the things that make real stuff happen in life. So if astrology is able to tell me what career I should have, then it must be able to tell me what I enjoy and what I don't enjoy. what I like and what I don't like, how my intellect works. I think astrology charts is also really good for that too. It depends. Basically, astrology can tell you everything. So the thing that it can tell you depends on you, the reader, the person using the astrology. What's interesting to you? Whatever is interesting to you, you can get incredible insight into that from astrology. So, like if you're a psychologist, then astrology is like such an incredibly rich diagnostic tool, evaluation tool. If you're a philosopher, then it's so philosophical. If you're, into how intelligence, if you're strategic, like a strategist, you can see how people think.
Yeah.
So
So
like
it's actually the applications are insane, basically.
limitless, just
Yeah.
like the
And I
combinations and calculations are limitless, the applications are limitless.
yeah, and I do believe I saw on Jeffrey Armstrong's website that they look at business teams charts to see how people fit together and work together.
Yeah, for
So
sure
that
you
was the
could do that.
first. That's the first time I came across that particular application, and it is insane. And that's what even I realize in these past few months, that actually forget reading all the books and all the self-help stuff and everything. Just read about yourself, because maybe you're making one mistake again and again and again, and every time with that experience you come a little deeper to figuring out the cause. But the chart can tell you that you're afraid of this
Yeah,
particular thing, and that's why you're doing something. But and like, I think most of us have never realized that this personal cheat code which we have, that we are not using it, or like
yeah,
we don't know how to use it. And I think it's phenomenal about like how much can be known from it. But I also feel it's scary because, like,
it's
for example, my friend, I do see him quite stressed all the time, because he's somebody who's always checking what's happening on with the planets and stuff like that, and he's always living under that. So I see that also happening.
I think that helped me a little bit, was that the fact that I got into Vedic philosophy before I got into astrology.
Hmm.
So it helped me to not get that. I don't care that much what my karma is going to be,
Hmm.
because whatever it is, I know it's good. Whether it's Saturn giving me a punch in the back, or whether it's Jupiter, giving me a hug,
Hmm.
either thing is the thing that I need. So I'm not that worried about it, but it is definitely, being an astrologer is not an easy job. Um, it's not. It's a lot like being a therapist in general, which is really tough. There's
Hmm.
people who are therapists; they're really soldiers, because
Hmm.
they go all of my whatever like trauma I have going to my therapist has to eat that too.
Hmm.
So it's, being an astrologer is very difficult, and actually I shied away from it, and so I stopped doing like one-to-one conversations with people, and because it would just make me so tired.
Hmm. I get it. So I wanted to ask you, how can, or and let me know if you think you've already answered this. Since we understood that astrology has to do with time and with the moments in time, based on the positions in the universe of different entities, how can it help us understand how time works? And I think that's too deep a question, but like, whatever light you can throw on it. And I don't mean this from an astrological perspective of people using it, that okay, like when my certain XYZ Mahadasha is on, that's when I should launch this new business or stuff like that.
Right.
I don't mean it like that. I mean it in terms of just how can it help a person understand time better.
Yeah, I think the most important thing to notice about the sky is that it's round.
Hmm.
So that's gonna inform you what time really is. Maybe the flat Earth society would disagree, but the sky is round and the planets go around us. It's so time's not flat. And then so that's really the most important lesson, is that the same things that are happening to you now are going to happen to you tomorrow too. And the same things that happen this year are going to happen next year, and the same things that happen in the 1970s are going to happen in the 1980s, with slight modifications every single time. You know, And so I was actually trying to explain recently I was trying to explain Chinese astrology to somebody. So what they do is it's basically identical to the Rig Vedic Yuga. So they have these 5 yugas that span 12 years each. And so with this, they get 60 unique years, and that's their basis for their astrology. But when I was explaining it to the person who's very new and has no idea about astrology at all, I realized how beautiful the whole thing is, and how all the way that time works is that it's these circular movements that are within other circular movements.
Yeah.
So it's like these gears spinning within other gears, and the way that they roll around is really, really beautiful, and it's like
Like
fascinating. You just watch it over and over.
like the backside of a watch.
Right? Exactly. And then that's why you get the first time that this cycle happened. Like every day, basically the same stuff happens, but that other circle is in a different position every time. And that's what literally is going on in the sky. Like it takes the sun X amount of time to make a circle. It takes Venus X amount of time. It takes Mercury, it takes Mars a different amount. And so literally what's going on is these circles within circles. I think some Greeks or somebody were actually using the same terminology they're talking about spheres within spheres, and they were trying to build models that would show that kind of movement. But yeah, that's the thing that it tells me about time, is that it's cyclic, but it's multi-cyclic. And the cycles aren't, they're synchronized, but they're all moving at different speeds. So you get like these repetitions of things. Like every moment is a repetition of the previous one. Every second is a repetition, but that's really small cycle. And that little tiny cycle is moving inside a bigger one. And that bigger cycle is moving inside a bigger one and inside a bigger one, so that you actually get unique moments, like an infinite number of unique moments from the beginning of a universe to the end of a universe, even though basically they're all the same. And I think this is why it's confusing to people whether or not time is linear or circular, because it is linear in a sense. The circle is moving in a certain direction, so you can see some linear progress, and it's never quite exactly the same thing twice. It's always slight. There's always some slight difference. Nonetheless, it's all this repetition. It's actually the repetition of these cycles within cycles that produces this thing that appears to be linear. That's fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It's insane, because it's like, again, like, you started your original first answers with, the example of the face of a clock, and it's literally like a nanosecond existing within a second, the second existing within a minute, the minute existing within an hour, and they're all of the same quantity in terms of units of time, but in terms of quality, they're all varying all the time. And like, the thing is that for us as free-willed human beings with having our own desires like karma, and then our duties, dharma, or whatever, like, it's just that different times have different levels of significance for us, and that's what allows us to give significance to ourselves and build a meaning about our life, which otherwise in a way is also meaningless, because we are also going to just go. So it's just beautiful, the whole concept of what time is. And listening to you on this, like, it brings me to the next question which I have, that I really, really loved, all the, from whatever I've seen, like the different kind of stories, etc., that you share. All right, whether they're from the Srimad Bhagavatam or whatever. So I wanted to know, which is your all-time favorite story. All right, whether it is just because you like the story, or one from which you learned the most. So I would love to know which is your favorite story, because you have that collection in your head. I know that. So
I don't know. I'm a little shy to say what it is, because it's very much my favorite story.
Okay.
So I'll probably avoid the question, but maybe people could probably guess what it is, since they know, if they know the Srimad Bhagavatam. I love all the other thing too is I love all of the stories. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
every one of them is so, and they're all so tied together.
Yeah.
And understanding one lets you understand another one. Like you said, like Shiva, Sati, that story is so incredibly good. It
Yeah.
actually, it makes me so sad that I can't go to the movie theater and watch this.
Yeah.
Like I want to see that. I want to see this story on the screen,
Yeah.
with a good actor, a good actress, the right sets, good effects. It would be
Yeah.
incredible. Other stuff is, I don't know. That's a recent one that I did. Like this riddle that Narada tells Barisha, the riddle of the citizen of the king in the city. It's this whole gigantic allegory for the soul and the body and his whole life. That riddle is just like so mind-boggling.
Can you please share?
It's in the fourth part of the Bhagavatam. He tells the tale of Puranjana, this
Okay.
the person who lives in the Pura in the city. He's see the reason why he told this to the king was the king already knew intellectually what he should do and what he should not do, but still he was doing stuff wrong. So Narada decided he didn't want to just give him more philosophy. He wanted to tell him a story that would emotionally affect him and make him change. I think that's also interesting. So he made up a story to illustrate a philosophy rather than just telling the philosophy. So he made up the story of this king who's wandering around the earth looking for a kingdom. And then he finally finds a kingdom, and it's this beautiful city with these nice walls, and it has 9 gates. And outside the walls, he meets this beautiful woman. As soon as he looks at the woman, this dragon comes out from behind her with 5 heads. And then all these bodyguards come around her, the 10 of the bodyguards. And then these bodyguards are attended by all these women. And then she speaks with him, and she agrees to marry him. And because of marrying her, he can then occupy the city. And then at one point he rebels against her because he feels like a puppet, because everything that she's telling him to do he's doing. And then he rebels against her and he goes out hunting on his own. And then that makes him exhausted, and he comes back, and the whole story goes on. And then they have children, and then the children deplete the country of all its resources, and they enslave the people around to like help the children become the servants of the children. And then he gets attacked by an enemy from the sky that has these soldiers who are black and white. And he has 720. There's 720 of them, 360 white ones and 360 black. And they attack him, and they
sorry, what are the numbers? What are the numbers again?
360, 720. So you see, all this stuff is part of the riddle.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to pay attention to the details.
Yeah, this
360 black ones and 720 white ones.
Yeah, what do you think it is?
360 black ones and these are soldiers. These are warriors.
Yeah, they're Gandharvas. They're sky dwellers.
Ah, okay.
Why? Okay. What do you think it is then? What is it that would what is the city?
Pura.
Yeah, that's his body. The city is his body. Then what are the guys from the sky? It's time.
Okay.
Right? The sky is where you see time moving. And why are they black and white?
To show the 2 different aspects of like duality, like the good and the evil.
Good idea. Day and night. 360 days in a year.
Yeah.
There's 360 soldiers. There's 360 white ones, 360 black. So you get 360 day and nights every year. So what Narada is saying is year after year, the city gets assaulted by the passing of time. And this one dragon is fighting off these soldiers from the sky year after year by himself. He's fighting off 360 people by himself. But every time he wins every time. But every time he gets a little bit more tired. And so by the time he's about 50 years of the fight, he still wins, but the battles are longer. I mean, it's just exactly the way that we, it takes us longer. Now I'm 52. Man, it just takes me longer to wake up. It takes me longer to, it takes me longer to like recover from something. Yeah. I can't just like go out. I don't know. If I stay up late, Like if I stay up till 4 in the morning, the next day it's like, oh, I feel like I have a hangover. But just, you don't have to drink or anything. You just have to stay up late now because I'm 52. But when I'm 26, I could have stayed up for like 3 days straight.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's that's the analogy. Like you, your body gradually gets tired, and the recovery of illness takes longer and everything. And then there's another enemy of the kingdom is the foreigners, the Yavanas. I think they're called the Yavanas, the foreigners. So that's analogous for all the stuff that, like germs, viruses, coronavirus, all the stuff that's foreign to the body. They're also attacking the city, but they combine with the time. After the dragon is our prana or vitality. After the vitality gets smashed, over 50 years of fighting, then these foreigners start to get stronger and stronger, and they have a daughter called Time's daughter, old age, and nobody wants to marry her. Narada says nobody wants to marry old age, even though they know that she once married King Puru and blessed him. Like, even though people know old age gives wisdom, still nobody wants old age. But she actually goes to the foreigners. She goes to Narada first, and Narada says, Hana, I'm a brahmachari. It's no go. And then she got really mad at him. She said, what do you mean you're a brahmachari? This is just an excuse. Anyway, you want to be a brahmachari? Fine, you be a brahmachari. You'll never, if you're not going to marry, if you're not going to settle down with me, you're not going to settle down anywhere. So she cursed him, but he's happy. No problem. Just like I say, like, who cares? If you get Saturn or Jupiter, who really cares? You get a curse or if you get a blessing, who cares? It's always going to be good for you if you have the right attitude. So Narada got cursed from old age that he'll never settle down. That's fine. He doesn't need to settle down. That's what it means to be a brahmachari, actually, right? That's an important part of it.
Freedom.
So, but he said, but he doesn't, he likes her and he wants to help her. So he says, I have a great idea for you. Let me be your matchmaker. There's this guy over there, foreign king. I think he'll marry you. So she goes to the foreign king and she says, I want to marry you. And he's actually deaf.
Okay.
So he says, yeah, but I don't want to marry you either, but marry my brother. My brother has fever. My brother is like the effect of disease, So disease marries death. And he says, and we'll all work together. We'll work as a triple team. And we'll have all my soldiers here. They're all the diseases. And we'll go attack this city. All these people that didn't want to marry you will get our revenge. We'll get revenge for you. They all dishonored you by, you actually offered to marry them and they turned you down. We're going to go. You're going to get all their heads. And she's like, yes, I like that. And they went and they attacked the city and they wrecked the city. And then he gets forced out of the city and then he gets pulled down to Yamaraj.
So the dragon lost this time? The dragon lost this time to these invaders?
Yeah, the dragon actually, it's actually very interesting. They say that the dragon tries to leave the city in the end. He tries to leave the city the same way that a snake tries to leave its hole when there's a fire. But it couldn't really get out. It couldn't really get out of the city. And it starts to just make these weird noises. Which is what happens with the prana when we are super close to death. When we're really close to death, people tend to make very strange noises because the breath, it moves really weird and it gets arrested and it stops and it moves weird and they make strange noises. But then when there's actual death, the servants of the king of death actually pull them out. They pull the king out of the city. They drag him out of the city. So that's kind of like Yamaraja, Yamadutas. They have to take the mind out of the body because the mind is just, even when the body is, the city was wrecked, it was burnt, it was destroyed by the war, but he still wanted to stay in it. And it's the same way, like when a person is dying, the mind is so habituated to being in that body that even though it's a piece of junk now, it still doesn't want to leave, and it still has
it tries to hold on.
Yeah, it has to have somebody help it get out.
Yeah.
And then he becomes a princess in his next life. He becomes Vidarbhi in his next life, and he marries somebody named Malyadwaj. And then they become yogis. And then so that story is just like, that's another example of just like a gem that's hidden in there. Every story is just so good.
But this is the first time that I've heard the mention of a dragon in one of our Vedic stories.
No, that's Nagas. Nagas are dragons. The Western mythology is just, if you export Vedic mythology or concept over the world, of course it's going to mix with whatever was there before, and the pronunciations are going to change, and maybe some of the visuals will change, maybe some of the details will change, but basically you get Indra, you get Zeus. So you get Nagas, you get dragons from the concept of Nagas. Nagas are these divine serpents who have tons of money.
They have all the
jewels, they have
luxuries
tons of
and
gems.
everything. Yeah.
They have powers, they're magical. They have incredible poison. All the dragons do different things. Tarkshaka has poison. Adishesh has fire. So
and they exist, right? Just like in a different dimension, basically.
They exist, but yeah. Let's say again, it's like just depending on your perception. The reality is based on the perceiver, so they don't exist for most people. But that doesn't mean that they're not there. It just means that it's not a part of most people's reality.
It's crazy. If you've got 10-15 minutes more, I've got 2 questions for you.
Sure.
More. Is that all right?
Yeah, I'm having a great time.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so happy, honestly. I'm so super happy because up until now, I've had a lot of different kinds of conversations. Most of them have happened organically. I've come across somebody either very similar wavelength of mind or somebody very opposite, and we've just gotten together at the same time and just impromptu done something. This is one of the rare times where I've actually reached out to somebody that I want to because you have learned a lot. I think you've spent since 1988 you've been learning whether Vedic philosophy and then this and that. That is a whole different topic on which I would love to speak with you about. Today we are doing astrology. So within astrology now, I've got a couple more questions. One is that since we just spoke about the kings, and we spoke about dragons, and we spoke about there are so many different kinds of creatures and entities in our Vedic stories. So there are the devtas, there are deities, then there are the planets, and they are all divine in their own nature, to some extent or the other. What I did not understand, or one confusion I have, and I would love to hear of what you have to say on this, is that what is the hierarchy between these people? Because, for example, if you're reading a chart, all right, you've got let's say Saturn, so you can do things to appease Saturn, all right, but at the same time you can do things to appease Lord Shiva, all right, and like this, whatever other things are there in our Vedic school of thought, including at the human level, like you've got the Shudras, the Vaishyas, you've got the Brahmanas, and you've got the Kshatriyas, which technically is not hierarchy. It's more to do with the Varnas, like the qualities or based on which you do your profession. But up from just a human being, everything else that exists, I want to understand which is more superior. Like, are the planets more superior than the gods? And the ultimate god is who? Because if you're also coming from Krishna consciousness, for you it's Krishna, and I'm just guessing, and that other ones are like demigods, like Lord Shiva or something like that. I don't know, I have some confusion, but I wanted to know, and I wanted to understand, like, what is the hierarchy based on our Vedas or Puranas on all of these guys?
Question. Yeah, I would probably, to give you a more detailed answer than you probably want, I would probably need to research it first, but I can give you a basic.
Yes, please.
First of all, divinity is what reality is. So there's nothing which is not divine. Everything is divine. And then the base divinity, what is divinity? Divinity is consciousness itself, the awareness of consciousness is existence, and the awareness of existence, that's God. So consciousness is the original divinity. That's what Brahman is. Brahman is the basis of all existence. That's the original divinity. Now, what does consciousness do? It's conscious of stuff. That's what it does. So consciousness
Aware of itself.
Yeah, actually, it would have to be aware of itself. But itself, okay, so consciousness is aware of itself. So that's its act. Consciousness has an act of being aware. So that explains everything really about why there is an existence and why there's red and blue and yellow and not just white. Why is there salty, sweet, and everything, and not just sweet? Why is there a whole bunch of different flavors? Why are there a whole bunch of different colors? Why are there a whole bunch of different things? It's because the experience has to be interesting. So consciousness is actually seeking experience that's interesting. So it's also manifesting itself to be experienced in interesting ways. So this is true. This is truly what Krishna is. Krishna is really the consciousness experiencing itself in very interesting ways, manifesting something to be aware of, a way to be aware of it, and a person to be aware of it. So that's really what the ultimate divinity is. It's just consciousness experiencing itself, but this produces everything. But most of the time, we don't have anything to do with this. Like, we exist in a separate reality which is not aware of this at all. Like, we're not directly interacting with this. So we have this alternate reality, which is where, see, basically, you and I and everything that exists is supposed to be part of what consciousness experiences.
But we are stuck in just the Maya aspect of it?
The Maya aspect is where you think, I'm not the thing which gets experienced. I'm the thing which experiences.
Oh, okay.
So the cause of thinking that way is just to not be aware of because you are an experiencer also. Because that's the interesting part. Is it really there's sex dolls and then there's real sex. Sex dolls might be exciting, but they're not really that exciting compared to real sex. So that is how Brahman works. He's not going to just make objects. He's not just going to make robots. He's not just going to make things. He's going to make beings that he can interact with. Not just toys. He's going to make beings. So we are just as godly as God is, because that's interesting for him, for God. He doesn't just want to make peons and subjects. He wants to make people that are on his level. He wants to make peers. He wants to make things to interact with. So it is reasonable for us to think that we are the God. We are the experiencer of reality. Yeah. So, and he also is very generous. Like, he doesn't say, no, you're wrong, stop. Because that wouldn't be interesting. Then he would be taking control and we would lose our autonomy, right? So he's saying it's part of his deal. It's part of his modus operandi. It's that he wants all of the things that he manifests to have autonomy, and some of them are ignoring him, then that's okay. And he facilitates us. So he creates this like alternate reality where we can feel like we are the experiencer and everything that exists is ours to be experienced. In this world has to be governed, it has to be governed and supervised and superintended. So all of the gods and so forth are the different entities and principles that are doing that governing. So that begins with, just the original male coming in contact with the original female, and that's the Prakriti Purusha. And then that manifests Shiva and Vishnu. And then that manifests Brahma. And then Brahma, he says, I need a lot of help. So he actually engineers all these sages. And then from the sages, the the gods are born.
From the sages, the gods are born.
From the sages, the gods are born.
The sage is a human form, right?
No, they're not really humans. Humans are an interesting thing. I mean, humans are technically a descendant from Manu.
Okay, the first man, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the first Manu is Swayambhuva Manu. Brahma directly makes this being, and he makes Shatarupi the first woman.
Okay.
Shatarupini and Swayambhuva Manu, they're the first male and women. And the thing that makes humans human is that they are the first thing that Brahma made that were able to do sexual reproduction. Previous to that, everybody had to do reproduction by engineering and mechanics. But with humans, and it was because of Shatarupini, she's called Shatarupini because she could change her genetics.
Okay.
So from her, she could modify her genetics so that they could have many kids. Otherwise, how do you get a non-retarded population from one man and one woman? You're going to get, it's incest, and you're going to get incredible retardation and all kinds of handicaps and everything going on.
Yeah.
But it's because Shatarupini had this mystic power that to take hundreds of forms, Shatarupini. That Manu could manifest a large enough gene pool that they could manifest humanity from that. So humanity is like another type of a god because it's created from something that Brahma created. But Manu and Shatarupini, they're not exactly humans. They're like God, the god of humans, the god and goddess of humans. And humans are like their children. So that's one basic hierarchy. And this is why also it's a kind of it's an earth-shattering thing, but the Vedic paradigm is that sages are more powerful than gods. This is why actually when Chandra cursed, he cursed Aditi. Yeah, and then Markandeya was born. He cursed her to have a miscarriage. Because when she was pregnant, she didn't fulfill her duty to a guest or something like that. And then when her husband returned home, I forget the name of the husband, may have been Kashyap. When he returned home and she's crying, he asked what happened, and she said, "We lost our child because Chandra cursed me." He said, "Don't even worry. He's just a god. I'm a sage. I'll reverse the curse." So he reversed the curse and the child came back to life, and that's why he's called Markandeya, from the egg that was dead. He was born from the death. Martanda was his first. Martanda. Mrityu Anda. Martanda.
Just a side note question. How long did it take you to get your pronunciation of all these Sanskrit-oriented names right, coming from American English?
Like the pronunciation?
Yeah, in the beginning, I'm sure you must have had some tough time, like trying to understand these names and words and everything.
Oh yeah, how long did it take? I don't know. I don't know. That was my thing. When I was a kid, I used to read Lord of the Rings, and my favorite part of Lord of the Rings was the appendix, because Tolkien explained Elvish language, and he had this like table of all the characters. He just ripped it off straight from Sanskrit. So I was just like fascinated with that stuff when I was a kid. So actually, the first time that I got a Bhagavad Gita, the first thing I just did was like get out the Devanagari table and like memorize it and just get into the Sanskrit. It's just like my thing. I like language. Language to me is like
natural
candy. Yeah, I really like language.
Okay, sorry.
It's like
please
bread.
go on with that Martananda then being born.
Yeah, so that is one of the amazing things about Vedic culture is that the gods are the guys who are in charge of the world, but the sages are the people that actually know how the world works. Okay. So the sages can actually correct the gods and they can undo the gods, and they actually have more power than the gods. But just like you noticed with Brahmanas, real and not real, the real mark of a sage is that they're not really business motivated. So they don't really care like whether the thing comes out this way or that way. They're fine with it either way. So they don't participate, like they don't interfere with the gods. The gods do their thing, the sages do their thing, but if necessary, the sages sometimes take the reins. There's another funny story where Indra was trying to keep the Ashwinis from getting Amrita. And there was one, I think it was Dadyansha, or maybe somebody else that was on Ashwini's side. And then Indra came to like punish them. He taught the Ashwinis how to make medicine, which is basically how to make Amrita. And then Indra got upset. Maybe mixing up stories, but there's this one other story where one of the sages just picked up his pinky like this. When Indra was going to kill somebody with a thunderbolt, and the sage just went like this, and then Indra's hand got paralyzed.
Wow.
He couldn't move he couldn't throw the bolt. And then he just looks at Indra with his finger like this, and he says, "You better put that down. These guys did nothing wrong."
Wow.
And then he put his pinky down, and Indra put down his thunderbolt. And then he like corrected Indra.
Wow.
And there's also an interesting divide. Also, the sages, they favor ahimsa very much. But the gods, sometimes they get really into power, and they get violent, and they get to war. They're always involved with war, and they like sacrifices. They like animal sacrifices. The sages, they dislike that. So there's also this divide.
I know some Hindu gods like animal sacrifices, but not on the whole, right? Not on the whole.
It depends on who you talk to about this. You get different interesting perspectives. Some will tolerate it. So I would say some tolerate it because gods are kind and they cater to people. They take care of people. So, for example, a lot of people want to eat meat. So some gods will be kind to that and cater to that person. Okay, offer me a goat. Sacrifice a goat to me, and then you can eat it. It doesn't really mean that this god was really wanting your goat. But since this god is trying to be helpful to you.
So getting the hierarchy right, you're saying in the beginning there's just Prakriti and Purush.
Yeah.
Okay. And from them came Brahma and Vishnu.
And what you can understand about Prakriti Purusha is this is consciousness. The Purusha is the experiencer consciousness, and Prakriti is the experienced consciousness. Right.
Yeah.
And then their act of union is the action of consciousness. And then that produces really, then this creates a manifestation of Vishnu. Right? Technically. But there's a Shiva who's already existing, who's called Sadashiva. But the way that Shiva avatars into the world is through Brahma. But it doesn't mean that he's lower in hierarchy to Brahma.
Yeah, I saw in one of your videos where he's one of Brahma's sons. Like
came out from
created from the forehead.
It's another amazing story.
Yeah.
But that's like an avatar. So it's like also Varaha came out of Brahma's nose, but that doesn't mean that Varaha is a Vishnu avatar. It doesn't mean that Vishnu is Brahma's son. Either Brahma was born from Vishnu's abdomen.
It's just symbology.
Or it's not just symbolism, but like I can walk in this room from my door, but the door is not my mom. My mom is my mom. The door is the way that I came into this room, but my mom is the way that I came into the world. So similarly, like just because an avatar appears through a certain person, like Krishna is born to Yashoda, it doesn't mean that Yashoda is not manifested from Krishna. This is another riddle. Like in the older Vedic scriptures, they do this riddle with Aditi and Daksha. That Aditi is Daksha's daughter, but she's also Daksha's mother. It's one of the riddles that they teach to show that kind of thing.
So you got Prakriti Purusha, the experiencer and the experienced, which is as similar to today, like a woman or a female having her full experience of femininity would be via a man, so that she can turn into a mother, basically. And the experience and the experienced come together. So that's amazing. And then we've got Brahma and Vishnu. And then after that, we've got the sages. And after that, we've got the gods.
Correct. And then after the gods, you get these other you get gods of various caliber.
like asuras and yakshas or all of that stuff?
Yeah, or even like Gandharvas. Gandharvas are also gods, but they're just very simple gods. They're not really in charge of that much. They're mostly just, what are they in charge of? Music and stuff, dance.
So these gods, like, which are below the sages, above the sages, we've got Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, basically.
Who are not gods, right? They're not gods. These are like the founders of reality.
Yeah. And then, so for example, the gods which are there for like of the nakshatras, like how Purva Ashara has Apas, the deity
Right.
of water. So they would fit below the sages, basically.
Yeah.
All of them. Okay.
But nobody really worships the sages, right?
Yeah.
Because what do you do with the sage? How do you worship a sage? You learn from them. You read the book. So actually, reading the Vedas, studying the Veda, that's how we worship the sages. But with gods, you worship the gods. You do some kind of an action. You do some kind of a ritual. You do some kind of a sacrifice or a ceremony.
And just on a side note, since you mentioned that it's about learning, like praying to a sage or worshiping a sage is more about learning from them. So in today's times, like our ancient texts, a lot of them have been kind of corrupted or translated into a bunch of different versions. And so which is an authentic source? Like how for the Gita you have Prabhupada's Gita, that particular version, I believe. So where can somebody, like, what are the authentic sources from where on the internet one can take out the Vedic texts?
For this, I think it's very important to know Sanskrit. Yeah, this is one of the motivators, I think, for me to become familiar with Sanskrit, was so that I could actually not deal with X person's version of it, but to see what it really is. And then Sanskrit itself has some built-in checksums, like in programming, there's these checksums. Sanskrit, the language, has these built-in things that let you know if it's been corrupted or not. This is
okay.
Is why the
it's
sages,
like Bitcoin.
they why did they go and they invent meters? Why why is the Veda in these meters, and it has to have a certain number of syllables, and this is so that like you cannot change this word to this other word. You're very limited. And when I, for example, read the astrology texts like Paladipika, they haven't been well maintained. There's just very innocent mistakes in there, just like typographical errors and stuff, because there hasn't been a lot of scholarly attention to them. They haven't been well maintained. But I can always see, like, there's something wrong with this line because it doesn't have the right number of syllables, or this syllable is supposed to be guru and it's lagu. It was supposed to be a long syllable, but it's a short syllable. But this guy is a good poet. He wouldn't have written it like this. This must have been changed. I wonder what it could have been originally. So Sanskrit is great in that way.
No, so knowing Sanskrit would be the medium, but what is the source from where one can acquire the texts, like the Bhagavatam or other Rig Vedic texts or this or that? Because I mean, they don't have a website like rigveda.com.
I don't know. There's a website. Again, it's just so risky. Like, it does, just because if I give somebody a diamond, it doesn't mean that they're going to be able to make a great ring out of it. So even if you get an authentic text or an authentic source, that's not the end of the story. It's the beginning of the story. But the ISKCON actually has this great online resource called the Vedabase, VEDABASE, Vedabase.com. You're going to get all of the founder of ISKCON's commentary with all of that, but you're also going to get all of the Sanskrit for everything. And the really great thing that they did was the way that they went about translating Sanskrit was they had a step in between the Sanskrit and the English. This is what really helped me learn it, actually. They had a step between Sanskrit and English where they would break it down like that. Dehinos minyata dehe komaram yovaram jara. They wouldn't just translate it into English. They would say dehinam means the person who has a body. Asmin means here. Yata means like that. So they have this paragraph in between the Sanskrit and the English where they they do the word for word. And that's online. It's on Vedabase something. If you probably just Google Vedabase, you'll see it. I use that. It's good enough. It's great. I mean, you have access
And
to
it's
Sanskrit from that.
uncorrupted.
Yeah. The thing is, if you're going, this is also the purpose of parampara, is to make sure that things are not corrupted. That doesn't mean that there's not going to be a mistake or an error here or there, but it's not going to be something that changes the meaning, you know?
You mentioned this this shloka or whatever started with Dehini, which meant
Yeah.
human body. So I also recently came across this concept of Deham, Koham, and Soham, where Deham means that physical limited identity, Koham means that identity amongst other identities, playing around, something like that. And then Soham is that we are all just one. There is no identity. It's dissolution of, the boundaries which we have. So that was also something good to learn. I'll come to my final, questions which I have for you. And I'm sorry if I've taken your time.
No, I'm happy.
But so what I wanted to ask was basically, there are two questions, both related to astrology only, to finish off with. And they are to do with, one, how has astrology, and this is without giving any personal details, how has astrology helped you over the years either become a better person or plan your life better or save yourself from hard times or like manage them better or whatever, without sharing anything personal? But since you've spent so many years in it, uh, what has it done for you?
Two ways. I would say two ways. It really helped me understand other people. Like before I really learned astrology, I didn't know this at the time, but before I understood astrology, I kind of thought that everybody else in the world should be like me. Like should think the same way that I think, should think that the same things are right or wrong or good or bad, should like, I like it, you should like it. After I learned astrology, I just all of a sudden it became real to me, tangible to me. It's not just an idea that I heard somebody talk about in a motivational speech, but that everybody's different. And after I learned like Mars has this subset of things that it is into, and Venus has this subset of things, and Jupiter this, then I could realize like there's a Jupiter type of person, and there's a Saturn kind of person. And the Saturn kind of person likes to operate in this way, and if you talk to them, they'll see things in this way, and that's their world, and it's okay. And this other Jupiter person, they're totally different, and that's them, and it's okay. It's okay for people to be completely different from each other. That sunk into me in a real way after I learned astrology. Whereas before, it was just something, of course, I would say it, but I didn't feel it or I didn't see it. And then the other way that astrology helped me was myself. Especially to admit that I had problems. Because previous to this, I would always think, I think that, my wife is wrong. I don't have that problem. Or this friend that's not my friend anymore. What's wrong with this guy? I don't have problems. But when I looked at the astrology chart, I was like, that is kind of a problem. I have to admit that if I saw this in somebody else's chart, I would think, this guy's got a problem with this. Mm-hmm. So it helped me kind of realize like, and it's the same, and it's almost the same thing as the other thing I mentioned. Like somebody is like this kind of person and it's okay. Like, it's okay to have flaws. Maybe this is the third thing too I realized with astrology is I've never seen a perfect chart. Even if you show me Krishna's chart, there's something wrong with it. So there's like, it's okay to like have something wrong with you. And in fact, but that's part of what makes us us. And the interesting thing about who we are is how do you cope with that? How do you deal with it? What do you do with your weaknesses? That makes you so this is also what I was trying to say about Saturn is not necessarily bad. Part of what makes a great person great is how that person copes with their problems. It's not just that, this guy has no problems. Yay. There's no such person like that. Everybody has problems. Everybody has flaws. Everybody has makes mistakes, terrible mistakes. Like my mistakes that I make over and over and over again. I make them with really important people that I shouldn't I shouldn't be hurting these people.
Yeah.
But also, I'm not going to kill myself for it. I'm not going to hate myself for it. I'm just going to, like, astrology helped me see, like, all right, that's my destiny. This is what I have to deal with. And these people, they're my children, they're my wife. They have to, they must be their destiny too. They got to deal with it. Let's say,
They gotta
kind of,
deal with you being a piece of shit sometimes.
so like we all have to deal with this, and we all have to, it can be a good thing. The effort to like deal with that, the effort to deal with it is also just as much of a good thing as the opportunity to like have great stuff.
Because that's where the growth and the expansion actually happens, right? In the
Yeah.
opportunity to deal with that. Obviously, sometimes like situations are like very, very heartbreaking and like very, very, like I'm sure you've had some, tough times in your life and stuff. So at that time, by the way, did you try any of like the astrological remedies and stuff? Like in India, they make you wear these rings or, give you a mantra which you chant and stuff like that. So have you ever done any of the remedies for yourself, and do they actually work?
They will work. I remember actually, I had one remedy that worked really well. And I would recommend this to everybody, is just go seva. Go seva.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember there's a time when the financial world was very, very stressful for me. Um, like I would just stress out if I could pay the bills. How would I? Working is not difficult when you're a weird person. I mean, working is not easy when you're weird,
Yeah.
So there was a time in my life when I was really stressed, and my friend said, I was going through that time too. And then I started donating to the Goshala, and now it's fine. I have no financial worries, and I did it, and it's so true. It just worked. I don't know if it's going to work for somebody else, but it worked for me. So yeah, I did that. That was one thing that I did. Also, I'm inclined to do that because I think that proper upaya should be good karma. I don't think really that upaya is really like buying a sapphire and wearing it on the correct finger. Maybe that is something that works for some people, but from my background, what I'm more interested in is good actions produce good results rather than the mystical stuff. Good actions produce good results. So of course, like donating to a goshala would generate good karma, or taking, giving charity to a good organization would generate good karma. You should do that. People should do these good deeds.
But they should do them as usual anyway.
Yeah, I think so.
So that is one thing. But how I asked you this question, what perspective is that, for example, these are the things which are within your hands. All right, these are in your hands, your actions going forward. But there are things which are outside of your hands, such as, let's say, if your Sadesati is there, or if Rahu Mahadasha is there, or all of those kind of things which are there. So to reduce the impact of all of those things, at that times also do the remedies and all work, and should people actually try them out?
No, it's because I was blessed to have a good guru. So I didn't have this problem. I didn't have this problem. I'm not yeah. What was I gonna say? I can't even remember what I was gonna say. Maybe I'm blocked from saying it, but yeah, I'd never had that problem. I don't want to reduce the impact of Rahu. I think this is ignorance. Why should I reduce the impact of Rahu? Is Rahu Satan? Is Rahu the devil? Is there such a thing as the devil or Satan? That's a Christian story. But is this part of the Vedas that there's this bad guy? There isn't. They're all good guys. So why would I want to reduce Rahu's impact on me? That's like the kid who is trying to run away from their parents because they did something wrong, and the parents are going to get mad at them and punish them. I mean, no, just sit there and let your parent correct you. Why like run away from your parents' correction? That's the blessing of having a parent, is that the parent corrects us. So I never, because I got good knowledge, because by good fortune I got good knowledge, so I never felt like I need a remedy so that this bad planet in my chart gets less bad. And the other thing is that I feel like I already know what the remedies are. The ultimate cause of all problem is avidya. Ignorance is the ultimate cause of all problems. So I don't need I'm not like looking around for a specific remedy that I need to do this puja on this day for this thing.
You mean avidya, right?
Avidya,
Ah,
no vidya, lack of
yeah,
vidya,
yeah.
ignorance. So I just feel like, if I study the Bhagavatam, basically if I study the Bhagavatam and meditate on it, then I'm removing my avidya. I'm removing my avidya. So that's going to be good. That's my upaya for everything. Like, and maybe that sounds like hocus pocus to some people, but in other words, to put it in a less hocus pocus way, if my knowledge of myself and my knowledge of the world is improving, then automatically my experience is going to improve. So although I'm not saying that I disbelieve in the various rituals and methods of, remedies and so forth, I never felt like I needed them. And also I never like really stress it to clients, but I like to do interesting therapeutic things, like one thing that I think is really beautiful with astrology is it's really a therapeutical gold mine. So for example, like if I see a person and they're complaining that they have a problem, like say with depression, with Saturn, then because of knowing astrology, I know that Saturn is connected with so many other things besides the specific problem that they're having. So you can help the person have a therapy where they can expose themselves to the other things about Saturn that won't terrify them right away or aren't the things that they think that they're having a problem with. And the way that the psyche works is the exposure to any aspect of Saturn will improve your relation with every aspect of Saturn. So like that's why sometimes somebody will say, well, okay, wear black. Or wear
But
red or
isn't
something.
black not Saturn's color? Isn't it a very dark blue?
Yeah, it is actually very dark blue.
Yeah.
But blue black or something like that.
Yeah.
It will cross over into black because that's Saturn's nature is super depressive, or super dark. So black will also work with Saturn. So sometimes I'll do that for people, and also the person will impress me in a different way. Like some people will really benefit from having a thing. Okay, wake up at 7:30, chant this 5 times while facing this direction, and light this up and move it in a circle 7 times, and do that 3 times a day. Some people will really benefit from that, and you can tell from the person. So I've done that. I've told people, okay, do this, and that helps certain people. But it's not my thing.
So when people are basically like asking astrologers like a specific question, because mostly people come to astrology, even me, for example, in certain situations when, we are desperate for a solution, or we, want to figure out that like this, when I was looking for a job and I was like, but this is where I want to go. Why are you saying it's there? Why can't I? So like, to what extent should they take like the advice of an astrologer into account? A regular human being, who's trying out astrology, for example, has no experience with it. To what extent should they bank on the advice given by an astrologer or whatever? And I know it's a very subjective question. It'll be different for who the astrologer is and this and that. But if, for example, we suppose that it's proper sound astrology, and here's a person who's gone for it, to what extent should they? Because a lot of times this becomes like a it becomes it biases them, for example, or it makes them think that, okay, this is the only future outcome, there's no other thing possible. So to what extent should they account for that?
I would want to say 100%, but I would want the person to realize what astrology is. So I would say astrology is is spongy. It's not bricky. So if you just realize that the information that you're getting from astrologer is not really like a brick or a stone or a piece of metal, but it's like maybe it's like even liquid, then you can bank on it 100%. So, the astrologer may say you'll get your job in the north. So now if you bank on that 100%, you're good. You can, maybe it's the north of the city where you were looking from. Maybe it's the north from when you look out your window. Maybe it's the North Pole. Maybe it's, the astrologer only can really see that it's from the north. But sometimes if you just limit yourself to exactly what the astrologer said, thinking I want to be 100% faithful, you might actually just be misunderstanding the nature of astrology itself, that it's not bricky, it's spongy. So I think people should be encouraged to always remember that it's Prakriti and Purusha that make the reality. It's not just a Purusha. So in other words, you have to interact. The Prakriti and Purusha have to interact. So you have to interact with the knowledge. It's not just like somebody can tell you an answer and then you just stick it onto your head and then you're successful. So, an astrologer or whoever gives you some guidance or information about your life, and you have to apply Anuman to it. You have to digest it. What exactly does it mean? How is it going to come true? Then I think it's safe to say have 100% trust in it, assuming that your trust is well founded and the reading was done well, etc.
That's fantastic, actually. I wish I myself can also start learning this. It's such an interesting subject. Like it feels like it's got so many hidden mysteries about the world and about people, wrapped up within it. It's really, really beautiful. Anything you would like to ask me? Like these were the questions which I had. Obviously, I have way more after listening to a whole bunch of things, but maybe once in the future we'll do something around Vedic philosophy or the Vedas
That
and
would be
stuff
great.
like that. Yeah, I would love that, and I would be so thankful for that. But this itself is amazing because, as usual, like it wasn't just like your videos. They're not just about astrology. They're about life. They're about everything. So anything you want to ask or share or anything?
No, just I want to say thank you. And just thank you, like person to person. It was not just thank you for like giving me the opportunity to blah blah blah, but thanks.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was like a very nice conversation.
Yeah.
It's like rare when you find somebody that wants to talk about the things that I like to talk about.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah. No, but thank you for giving birth to those questions in my head. So that was amazing, and I'm gonna definitely link up your YouTube and everything. Any particular video series you would want people to start off with, or just the channel itself is
Just
good
the
enough?
channel itself would be great.
Just the channel itself, and any other social you are active on? Because I don't know if your Instagram, you're that, like, I think it's more personal, or it doesn't
Not
seem to be
really.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So YouTube and the website are the two places where people
Yeah.
can reach you, right? And yeah, that's it then. That's fantastic. That's
All right,
really
great.
good. That's really, really good.
Thank you so much.
I hope didn't waste any of your time. I hope,
Not at all.
this was good. And I'm gonna come back to your channel and just learn whatever more I can learn over there.
Great.
It's been really, really good. Really, really
Thank you.
good. And cheers. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right. And I'll speak to you soon again. And meanwhile, if there's any way in which I can be of service or help, please let me know.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Cheers. See you.